Hi, I am Cynthia L. Simmons. Do you remember when you first got married, or maybe when you even first met that special person? There was a pizzazz, there was a spark, and you couldn't wait to be with them and you wanted to talk to them all day long. I believe that should be in your marriage now. Because after all, sex belongs in marriage. It doesn't belong outside of it. So today we're going to talk about how to rev up your relationship. Get your marriage back to that sizzle that you had once before and have a really hot relationship with your husband. Stay tuned.
Kids are going to bring a lot of changes to your marriage, and they'll sort of dampen your enthusiasm for your husband. This workshop is all about getting back that spark. This is my family. My family and I, we homeschooled all of our kids. And so I know what it's like to be really busy. The little one right there at the end is my granddaughter, and the girl with the polka dots is her mother. So these are all my kids. This is when my oldest son got married. Our society is saturated with sex. You brush your teeth to be sexy, you wear shoes to be sexy, hair is sexy. In the movies, people go to bed together as often as they have breakfast or lunch. However, the Bible talks pretty openly about sex, and I'm going to be really honest about it because I'm a registered nurse. I'm not embarrassed. I'm going to just tell you like it is. God reveals that He intended for sex to be between a husband and a wife only, not all over the place, and our culture depicts it as being everybody having sex except in marriage because marriages are falling apart. So let's talk about how we can do it right, because if you don't, you actually can injure yourself and others. Let's talk about the creation mandate. The creation mandate says, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it. And so men and women are told to get together and have babies. Now, God has never really revoked that, even though you might say, well, the earth is full. But it doesn't take very long for us to have a drop in population if we stop having children. China discovered that when they had their one-child policy, because pretty soon they had no one for their sons to marry because they were getting rid of all their girls. So it is important to have the next generation. This is something that we need to do, or else the human race ends. So yes, this is something God wants us to do, is have children, and sex is part of that. Now, I don't want you to think that I'm talking to people who can't have children, because that's a different story. But sex belongs in marriage because it is a powerful thing, and the family is something that can contain that power and deal with its consequences, which is children. In the Bible, it talks about how not only are we to have children in marriage, but that the whole point of marriage in the New Testament is an analogy for this love between Christ and the church. And the Bible says, a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. And that statement, one flesh, is the symbol of their unity, the act that creates children. Sex is so powerful that it can destroy if it's used the wrong way. If you have ever met a woman who has been scorned, you will understand women who are treated poorly start hating men and become very, very strong against them. And they become pro-extreme women. And that's not healthy because it can destroy. So, we hear about rights all the time, every day. We hear people talk about, this is my right, that is my right. But did you know that the husband should give his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband? Did you know that was in the Bible? Boy, that's pretty blunt, isn't it? But let's keep. Who belongs to who? The wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. So if you're talking about rights, your body belongs to your husband and his body belongs to you. And so that really changes the picture just a little bit. And so if we're going to be other-centered, we're going to be thinking about how we can interest him in having fun, right? Because it should be fun. This verse. Do not deprive each other except by mutual consent and for a time. So if you're going to fast for a little while and pray, good thing. But you need to come back together because Satan can use that for temptation. And sex is designed to go in marriage. It should be there. So don't go on a sex fast. And you know, because of these verses, I became the kind of woman that thought, I am going to do everything I can to say yes every time I can. I don't want to ever say no. And I wanted to keep a relationship so that this is important in our lives. So that's the question. How can we do that? Sex is a gift that you share only with your spouse, which makes it particularly special because it's something you only do with each other. And one of the most painful and difficult things in a marriage is when someone has been unfaithful. It almost destroys it. And so that's why you should be so careful. This verse. I love this. This is from Song of Solomon. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his lips, for his love is better than wine. Song of Solomon is the story of the king getting married, and it gives the whole picture of that sexual relationship and that physical attraction between them. So there's an entire book of the Bible devoted to sex, believe it or not. What are some of the barriers to intimacy? Because that's what we need to talk about, because after all, sometimes we don't feel like we're in the mood and we need to figure out what's wrong. One of them can be fatigue. Maybe you aren't sleeping, or else sleep is not a very high priority. That can be a real problem too. Okay, so here's some clues on sleeping. Your kids have a bedtime, you put them to bed, and you have a time that they get up. So you put the kids to bed, make them stay there, and you have a bedtime. But if you're so busy you can't think about it, start thinking about preparing your mind to sleep before bedtime. Start turning down the lights. Start putting on soft clothes, pajamas, get a really hot bath, chill out, and have a regular bedtime. Because if your body is used to being on a cycle, that's going to make a difference. We'll talk about how to get heated up later, but I'm just talking about now, making sure that you get a regular time of sleep so that you are not sleep deprived. Because being sleep deprived can actually cause you to become ill. You don't want to do that. Another thing is that you have a headache. Maybe you've just had a stressful day. Maybe you have allergies. Take care of yourself. Drink a lot of water. Take something for a headache. And get sex on your mind. Now, another problem is that you might be angry with him. So we're going to give you a few tips on what a man is like here. The man's mind is changed before birth. He actually gets drenched with testosterone in the womb, and it damages his brain. That's true. That little corpus callosum that goes between the two sides of the brain is not very big in a man because it was damaged by testosterone. And so he does not handle emotion the same way as we do. In fact, he doesn't handle negative emotions very well at all. If you notice, a man will sometimes get angry, walk off. Sometimes they go exercise when they get mad. They don't handle it, and so they don't know how to. You be aware of that. They have a focus that's very different than ours. They can focus on something forever and ignore everything else in the room. The house can almost be burning down and they won't notice it. They're very aggressive and competitive, and that is because of the testosterone. A man can actually walk in a room, he's competitive with his wife, and he will look at the other men in the room and see what their wives look like and measure him and his wife against their wives and them. Because he's competitive. They do that. They've got that warrior sense. I'm better than you are. You've seen little boys in the field playing with their toy guns or their swords. They're going to do that. They're goal-oriented. A man wants to protect his wife against everything. And intuitively, that's what they do. So understand that. Sometimes you have something on your mind that you want to talk about. You just want to dump all your emotions out and sort through them and just look at them. But you know what he wants to do? He's goal-oriented, and he wants to solve the problem. And so that can make you really mad. If you want to solve a problem, he says, well, we need to quit that group. They're terrible. And you're going, wait a minute, those are my friends. So what you need to do is cue him in and say, what I need to do right now is process this. Can you just listen for a minute without giving advice? Because I need to talk about this so I can understand it. And then he'll have the cue that he doesn't have to solve the problem. Another thing that might happen is he doesn't hear you. My husband is like this. He can be on the back porch and I can be in the basement. I will hear the doorbell ring and he will never hear it. And in fact, when the kids were disobeying, I could tell you where every kid was in the house, what they were doing, everything that was going on. He didn't know any of it because he can't multitask. He is focused on that one little job and he'll get that job done before he gets anything else done. So he doesn't hear you. You're going to have to call his name, touch his shoulder, and be aware he can't multitask. He wasn't designed to be a mother. He was designed to be a man who provides for his family. He's got that goal in mind, and that's more important than anything else, and so relationships kind of can go downhill. In fact, my problem is sometimes my husband plugs in his ears, and I can't tell his ears are plugged in, so I start talking to him, and he hasn't heard a thing I said because he's got this goal in his mind. So be aware of that. You're not going to change that about him, but be aware that he's like that. So, here's the female line. We are nurturing. We're going to take care of everybody whether they want us to or not. We are going to multitask. I can remember how many times that I carried a baby around on my hip and stirred juice and cooked on the stove, gave a spelling test. I did all kinds of things at one time. Your husband can't do that. I have to talk to process my emotions. That's why we want to talk to a man and tell him what's going on. And they want to solve your problem. So be aware that you need to cue him in on that. Distractible. And this comes into sex too, because you're so distractible that you can start to get keyed up, and the least little thing you're out of it. You're relationship oriented. You care about your friends. You care about the people around you. Your husband talks about moving and you freak out. You can't leave your friends because you're relationship oriented. You're a protector. You want to protect those kids, and your husband wants to shove them out the door and challenge them. Kids need both, but they get one from their dad and one from you. Be aware of that. You care about your nest. You want your nest all ready when your babies are coming. You want your home to be perfect. You want to have everything out of the way. He's not as concerned about that. Just be aware of it. We arouse differently too. You may have noticed this, but let's talk about this more. A man is aroused by sight. It's like an explosion in his brain. He goes from 0 to nothing in seconds, and he's ready to go. But you're not like you have to simmer a little bit. In fact, sex needs to start at breakfast and cook all day long. Kind of think about a crock pot where you put stuff in there and let it cook all day and cook and cook and cook and cook. And when you get to it, it's nice and soft and perfect. That is what you need. So let's talk about some ways to simmer. What you're going to realize is if you watch your cycle and watch how it happens over the month, that after your period is over, you are going to be really low on hormones, but then they're going to start to rise. And about the middle of the month, you're going to start feeling really like you're in life. You're going to be more interested in sex. And that's because you're more fertile during that time. So be aware of that and watch yourself. Now, when you're on your period, sometimes you're very sensitive, you're easy to cry and all that kind of stuff because your hormones have fallen. But be aware and start charting those emotions so that you know when to start planning. So when you realize that your emotions are starting to go that direction, make a plan. And here's some things that you can do. Watch a movie. Watch a romantic movie. Read something romantic. That's when romance books come in handy. They can really get you in the mood. Just be sure it's a clean romance. You don't want to fantasize about someone else having sex or having sex with someone else that's not your husband. Make sure that any fantasy you have has to do with your husband and you, nobody else. So do a little fantasy. Imagine and think about it. And maybe even plan something. It's really fun to actually have a sex date. My parents did that for me one time. They took the kids and let us go out and spend the whole day together on our anniversary. And we got a hotel room. And that was the best. Oh, that was wonderful because we had a sex date. We knew all day long that's what we were going to do. And so every little touch was very sensual. And we did a lot of bumping and rolling our eyes at each other. And we really got my motor going. Now your husband's going to enjoy it just because it's fun, but you need that time to get yourself revved up. So plan a date. Actually plan a time, maybe a couple times a month, but definitely during that little time that your hormones are starting to get wild. And have a sex date. After all, this is where sex is supposed to belong. Now, let me talk a little bit about what happens in a woman's body. Sex is the interaction between the central nervous system, this parasympathetic, and the sympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic is what kind of lets you get aroused, but at some point the sympathetic steps in there and lets you get very aroused. Now, a man's penis is the cue. I mean, you can touch it and he's 100% right away. But a woman's clitoris is what gets her aroused and more ready for sex. And as your husband massages that and touches all those tissues down there, everything is going to swell and get full of blood so that when he mounts you, you will be able to have an orgasm. What happens in an orgasm is your body comes to the point of being totally stimulated, and then your sympathetic nervous system turns everything off, and then you have the climax. So you want to have that climax, but you have to realize that what happens in a female body is that it's like pushing a wagon up the hill, up till you reach the climax. And if you get distracted even the least little bit, that wagon's going to fall back down the hill. So keep your mind on what's going on, keep thinking about it, and allow yourself to push yourself to the top of that mountain so you can have a climax. Now, a man's going to be easy because they usually don't get distracted, and it usually happens very, very fast. A woman actually has the ability to have a much longer orgasm because we release oxytocin, which causes our uterus to clamp down in a very pleasant way. So, allow yourself to relax and focus on that so you can enjoy it. So those are some ways that you can have a very sexual relationship. So it's the interplay of the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system that causes. So here's what I want to say in closing. Your choices matter. And when it comes to sex, it can be very painful if someone is unfaithful or even emotionally unfaithful. So make it a very high priority to just talk to your husband and find out what he likes and discuss what you like and come up with plans where you can kind of work together with his needs and your plans and your family and have a relationship that is hot. Let the kids watch you kiss and cuddle and show affection because that's going to give them the comfort of knowing their parents really love each other. Your choices matter, and they matter a lot, not just for now, but for eternity. And what I'm going to encourage you to do with your family and with your husband is to leave a legacy. My parents loved each other, And they let us know it. And in fact, that picture up at the far corner of the black and white picture, that's my parents. They loved each other, they showed it, and it made me feel secure. You can do the same thing. The picture there of the bride is my daughter-in-law. You do the same thing with your marriage. Leave a legacy of a loving husband and wife so your kids can follow that. That's a great thing to do. Have a hot relationship with your husband.
Now we both know that information was helpful. If your husband would like to send me an email and thank me, cynthialsimmons@gmail.com, and you can find me at clsimmons.com. I was named after my dad, who was C.L., and I use his initials in memory of him.